What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. Today we are taking it to a solar hunter build for y'all that has been requested by a few people within the community, using the exotic frosties with the updated mod system and with our fragments and aspects being able to get those extra slots this season. We have made this build even better than it was before for some nice solar ability spam here on your hunter. Now, starting off for our abilities, aspects, and fragments, running Blade Barrage right here for that nice DPS, as well as very good for that ad clear. Now, for our abilities, I'm using Gambler's Dodge so we can get back our melee when we do happen to lose it with triple jump. Now, you could really go with any knife you want here in our melee. I personally like this for the ignition and scorch, plus the fan seems like the easiest for how this build sets up. Again, for grenades, can really use whatever you want, but with the super fast cooldown of firebolt and how we have our fragments set out, this just felt better than something like solar grenade with 230 as its cooldown instead of 104, so I chose those firebolt grenades on this bad boy. Now, like I mentioned, with our aspects, we got some additional slots, especially with this in Gunpowder Gamble. So first, we got that knock 'em down. Our supers are enhanced, so our Blade Barrage launches more of those projectiles, allowing us to do more damage, clear more ads, plus while radiant final blows with your equipped throwing knife fully refund your melee energy, allowing even more of that spam. So we're going to be creating orbs of power with that, as well as getting back our other abilities, so it's super nice to have our knives up basically at all times. Now, very good for this build, we're actually going to be able to use Gunpowder Gamble now that it has 2 slots instead of 1, so defeating targets with abilities, solar debuffs, or solar weapons charges up an improved solar explosion. We can throw it like a grenade and explode it mid-air. This thing does some pretty insane damage and is very good at wiping ads in an AoE effect, so this thing is very nice, and we are getting them very consistently because we're going to have solar weapons on, plus that knife is going to be up all the time. For our fragments down here, we got Ember of Ashes. You apply more stacks of scorched targets, which applies for our knives as well as our firebolts, so we can use that for ignitions and then also stunning those unstoppable champions. Next on our list, we got Ember of Empyrean. Solar weapon or ability final blows extend the duration of restoration or radiant, so we're gonna get that very easily with this build, as you will see with radiant and our throwing knives. So every single time we get those defeats with our 2 solar weapons or with that continuous throwing knife that we're going to have up, we're going to have radiant basically all the time, which plays back into knock 'em down and having that throwing knife fully refund its energy. Third on the list, Ember of Eruption. Those solar ignitions have increased area of effect, just helping us for that ad control mechanic. Plus, this build, we're getting ignitions a lot with our knives, as well as that firebolt grenade, having them up pretty much consistently, like I said. And last but certainly not least, very important for this build, Ember of Torches. Powered melee attacks against combatants make you and nearby allies radiant, so plays back right into our knock 'em down and knife trick. So we're always radiant and always getting that melee back when we get the defeats. So we're going to get that, allowing us to have that anti-barrier be procced on something like the SMG we're using. So very, very good part of this build and very essential. Now, moving on to weapons right here for this build, we have 2 different options or 2 different sets here. For our kinetic, first off, we have Wither Horde. This is definitely my go-to with the all-new Bug Out bag, as well as Unwavering Duty with that incandescent auto-loading. I have been loving this thing. So we have Wither Horde as our kinetic. I am looking for a better Bug Out bag, which comes from this season actually, over at the Helm. You can get it from Turning in Fish, as well as at that hollow projector right there in Sloan, but I'm looking for that with incandescent, so we can have incandescent on both of these to help spread that scorch and ignitions everywhere. Now the other option that we have is something like Demolitionist with the Deliverance, or something like a Riptide that is a stasis fusion rifle, so we can deal with overload and unstoppable champions. In the energy slot, I'm using Timecodes because this thing is pretty nasty with that spreading of Scorch and just pairing it with this solar subclass, so we can get Empyrean to proc and keep up that Radiant, etc. And then I'm still going to be using the Unwavering Duty right here. You could throw on anything else in a solar LMG that has incandescent. I just personally have been liking this one. Plus, my other one that I use seems to be used a lot with fixed odds. It's craftable, so it is very good, but this is also a very viable option. This build really doesn't revolve around artifact mods this season. It is a universal thing that'll work for a lot of different builds. In seasons that we have solar especially, will make this even better than it already is. But something like a Void and Arc season like this thing still works very, very well with being able to stun barrier champions because of Radiant, and then also those unstoppables because of ignitions. And then when you switch to something like a Deliverance, you got everything going for you because your Radiant gives you a barrier, and then Deliverance with that chill clip can do overload and unstoppable. So a very, very universal build, basically no matter what season we're going into. Now, with the new updated mod system and this build, we're going to have heavy ammo finder, so we can always have that Unwavering Duty up, as well as Solar Siphon and Hands On, so we can create Orbs of Power via both our Bug Out bag as well as Unwavering Duty. Or if you're using Timecodes, that'll also create you those Orbs of Power with Solar defeats, and then Hands On with those melee kills. Since we have our melee up consistently with this build by getting Radiant, then getting those defeats, we're going to be able to get our super back very, very fast with those defeats. Moving on to our arms right here with heavy-handed impact induction and grenade kickstarter. Impact induction, causing damage with our melee, is going to reduce our grenade cooldown. Heavy-handed, we're going to create orbs of power on those melee final blows. And grenade kickstarter, when we have that armor charge, when we throw our grenade, we're going to get a nice chunk of it back. So this, with that infinite melee being up, we're basically going to get our grenades very, very quickly because of impact induction, as well as heavy-handed giving us orbs of power, which allow us to have that armor charge, which will then proc grenade kickstarter. So just within the arms, it's a little positive feedback loop. Now, onto your chest piece, I use one charged up and then one with a defensive, so you can use concussive dampener, melee dampener, sniper dampener, or arc resistance, whatever it may be, depending on the activity that you're going into. The new dungeon, I would probably throw on arc resistance instead of concussive dampener because of those moths, and pretty much everything I feel like is shooting arc. There's a little bit of solar, but definitely arc is the go-to, so it's a very viable, and definitely switch it up depending on what you're going into for that extra little bit of survivability. Now, moving on to the Frosties, which are definitely a slept on exotic. We have that rapid cooldown on our boots, increased grenade, melee, and dodge regeneration while sprinting. Dodging increases our sprint speed as well. So with this build, we're going to be able to spam our melee infinitely and our grenade just inside of itself. And then when you throw these boots on, it gets even better, because when you're going in that higher content and you're not getting the constant defeats with those one throw melees, you can use this boots to just run around, get those SMG kills, and keep your restoration and radiant up with that. And before you know it, with that speed of the regeneration of rapid cooldown, you're going to get your abilities back super fast with this build, allowing for a crazy ignition solar spam. Now for our mods as well, we got recuperation, insulation, and absolution. So when we pick up orbs of power, we're going to get all of our ability cooldowns back. We're going to get specifically our class ability back because we're using gambler's dodge. And then recuperation, we're going to get health every single time we pick up orbs of power. And as you'll see on our class item, that comes into play with a new mod, as well as it is very good with that melee. We're going to be creating orbs of power everywhere, so these get procced very often. And last but certainly not least, our cloak and that mod I'm talking about in Powerful Attraction. Every time we dodge, we automatically collect all of those orbs near us, so it'll proc everything that we have on our boots with those orbs of power in ability regen, as well as our health gets regened, and we're creating them from our weapons as well as our melee, so there's going to be orbs absolutely everywhere. And then additionally, while we dodge, we have double bomber on, so we're going to get our grenade back again, allowing us to spam with that discipline and absolutely have our grenades up basically consistently, like I said, as well as the knives are up consistently because of that radiant and knock them out in our fragment and aspects. So this build is super fun with this updated mod system, allowing for even better solar ability spam than we had before. Powerful attractions in a mod is almost a go-to on every single build now, because it is so crazy that you can just dodge, throw down a rift, throw down a barricade, and all of those orbs just get collected to you, especially when you're using stuff that gives you your abilities back on your boots, gives you health. Very good for survivability, very good for ability spam. So definitely a very fun updated build for the Frosties here. Definitely throwing it in the A tier for ability spam. Definitely some better things out there in that SS plus tier build for super meta gameplay. Star Eater scales, obviously, Caliban's hands, stuff like that. But this, because it can be very versatile, really goes on any class in my personal opinion. But this solar right here is very fun, and it was a requested build, so I hope y'all enjoy it and as much as I do, and that support has been absolutely gnarly lately. I truly appreciate all that as well. So don't be afraid to hit that notice and turn on the bell, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of these builds, as well as the guides we got coming out for some weapons, god rolls, etc. So I truly appreciate all y'all. I'll catch you guys in the next one.